In Jeremiah 17, we're told in verse 9 that the heart is crooked above all and desperately sick. Who shall know it? So that was one of our foundational verses to start this whole teaching 27 parts ago. You know, in verse 10 of that section in Jeremiah 17, it also says, I, Yahweh, search the heart, and I try the kidneys. And so this is a phrase, by the way, that pops up many, many, many times in Scripture, and it will come up a lot in Jeremiah, this idea that he tests and proves, which should remind us back to Deuteronomy 6, where he says, Deuteronomy 8, where he says that he puts us here on the, through our wilderness walk to test us, to prove whether it's in our heart, whether we're going to keep his commandments, or whether it's in our heart to do it, whether we have the heart to do it. See, it's not about mechanically doing things. You can mechanically do anything, especially if you're scared enough. If somebody's sort of browbeating you and leaning on you and forcing you, he's not interested in that. He wants to know, do you have a heart, a desire to do it? So he wants to know what's in your heart, not whether or not just you'll do it, but whether it's in your heart. Because he could lean on you, as hard as he wants. He can make you do it. There's no two ways about it. But that's not, who wants to live with a bunch of people forever that are only doing what you want them to do because you're making them do it? He wants you to want to do it because why? Because you realize that it works, that it's the best answer, the best way, the best solution, the best process. To acknowledge that he actually knows better than you. You know what? Father knows best. We're not talking about the TV show. Father knows best. If you'd only believe that and trust that and walk in it, you'd be a whole lot happier. And life would work a whole lot better and simpler. Father knows best. But that's a hard issue because you still think you know best. And that's where we get into all this trouble. You know, and when I was writing this, I said the heart, the metaphorical seat of our emotions and desires, it's these emotions and desires that lead to the actions we take, whether evil or good. If not controlled or left unchecked, they will form a veil before your eyes and cloud your mind, which will in turn greatly affect the decisions you make. That's it right there. So this blinds you. And actually, it's almost more insidious than that. It filters. So it's bad enough if it just blinded you, meaning it was opaque and you couldn't see through, but it veils. So now you're seeing things not exactly like they really are. You're seeing it kind of through the glass darkly, but you're still seeing. So now you're welcome, or at least you feel welcome, to interpret the parts that you don't see that clearly. And you interpret it to your best advantage, the way you see things, not to your best advantage, the way he sees things. Because he really knows what's to your best advantage, but you see it the way you see it. So you end up then, because of this veiling, you feel licensed to bend and twist and adjust the verses and the instructions to fit your preferences. So we have to realize that the emotions and desires that if left unchecked and uncontrolled, they will form this veil. See, that's what, because the heart becomes the problem. Remember, we've talked about the process, and this is the process in life. Ready? We think, we have an idea or a thought or something comes into our mind. If we meditate on it, and that doesn't mean just like or something. It means if you think about it over time, on a regular basis, it eventually ends up in your heart where your emotions attach to it. Now it becomes emotionally connected. Once it becomes emotionally connected, if it hasn't already, it will now manifest as an action. Sometimes that process happens almost instantly. Thought, emotion, action. Sometimes it takes a lot of time. You think about something, emotions get, and then the action takes place over time. But thought, once it's attached with emotion, if it's held on to long enough, eventually manifests action. That's why the scriptures talks about, and this is in a lot of the parts we've read up to this point, it says that he wants us to lay up in our heart his Torah. We have to lay it up in our heart, because if it's in our heart and the right emotions get attached to it, we will manifest the actions of Torah observance. And that's really what he's talking about here. But on the other hand, we take the thought, it leads to an action. The heart then emotionally gets connected to it, then leads to an action. Guess what happens? Actions over time become habits. You do the action over and over again, it becomes habitual. Once it's habitual, it's then very hard to break because you do it without even thinking. Okay, you do it without thinking. It becomes a part of what and who you are. And guess what habits lead to? Ultimately, your destiny. So thought into the heart, into the emotions, reaps an action. Actions done over and over again reap a habit. Habits done over and over again reap a destiny. In other words, it puts you on a path. A consistent behavioral pattern is definitely going to lead you to a very specific end.